Hi, this is Jim Couri again with another tape in the series of tapes I'm trying to put together on court corruption. I would like to address a couple of issues that Mr. Kenneth Gomez has harped upon in his blogs because I think it's particularly interesting in relation to court corruption. Mr. Gomez, acting as a front for George Pavia, John Siebert, and Russo and Burke and Joe Burke, has chosen to make an interesting point. The point is, he asks, how can it be that a bright man such as Jim Couri keeps losing in court cases in the courthouse in New York? Well, Mr. Gomez, the whole thrust of these tapes is to establish how corrupt some of these courts are. And in particular, the court cases that you refer to are the cases that you and Pavia and Siebert and Burke are involved in. So it's amazing to me that you make the point of wondering how come somebody that's being cheated continues to lose. Now, it's not unreasonable to figure out how someone is being cheated in these courts. And I'll give Mr. Gomez an interesting example, since he also makes the point in one of his other illustrious blogs that Jim Couri had been involved in over 300 lawsuits in Supreme New York. Such is not only preposterous. If Mr. Gomez chose to look at his list, he would find that it's just not Jim Couri. It is other Couris, of which there are probably 4 dozen in the city of New York. Also, it's interesting to point out that the Couris that he refers to were plaintiff, not defendant. Now, the truth of the matter is, if you analyze Mr. Gomez's list, you'll find that it goes back to somewhere around 1970. That's 39 years ago. The fact is, from 1970 to now, I probably had about 80 lawsuits in which I was a plaintiff, involving cases that I have been involved with, companies in which we had to sue people that owed us money, or for claims, or for matrimonial matters. The fact of the matter is, every lawsuit I was involved in was settled satisfactorily. Most of them I won. And I dare say I was hardly ever sued at all, because I do pay my bills, contrary to Mr. Gomez's protestations. Now, going back to Mr. Gomez's claim that Mr. Couri happens to be involved in all these lawsuits and he's wondering why I'm losing, let's take one example involving Judge Joan Madden and something called res judicata. Now, many of you may not know what res judicata is, so I'm going to read it to you. A res judicata is an action on a final judgment that has been resolved on the merits precludes the parties from relitigating issues that were or could have been raised in that action. Now, that's a pretty simple scenario. You just can't keep trying to sue somebody in multiple courts hoping to get a different result. Now, Judge Madden has an interesting theory. Mr. Pavia originally sued me for a leak. When he wasn't able to establish his leak, he decided to amend his complaint, charging me with nuisance for writing letters to his office. The interesting thing about that is that he had already litigated the claim of nuisance in the criminal court, where he brought a charge against me and it was thrown out thanks to my lawyer friend Ron Kuby, and that the district attorney finally realized Pavia was a nutcase. At the DHCR, he lost that. At the ECB court, he lost that. Then he tried to go to another judge in the Supreme Court with an Article 78 from the case he lost at the DHCR, and he was thrown out again. Now, that's 4 or 5 bites at the same apple. Enter Joan Madden. He brought a nuisance claim. I made a motion to dismiss it on the grounds that it was barred by res judicata. My wife's lawyer made the same motion. Judge Madden, in her infinite wisdom, denied it. Now, the law is the law. The case was litigated 4 other times. Not only that, a true nuisance is somebody who does misbehavior and wrongful activities within the 4 corners of the building. Not writing letters to a guy's office in response to his lewd behavior, lascivious conduct, and harassment of my tenancy in his building. Joe Madden thought better of it. Joe Madden wrote and rewrote the statute of nuisance and misled the jury so that I would lose my rent-stabilized rights. Now that's how these courts work. Conversely to that, an interesting case a few years ago in Westchester County involving a leak. Leak is settled. Guy has another leak 3 or 4 rooms down in his apartment in a celebrated building. The judge says that's res judicata. How can that be? And the guy took it up to the appellate division and he lost. Why? Because the fix was in because he had a celebrated landlord that he was fighting against. So the fact of the matter is, the law is one thing, the interpretation of the law is another. What Mr. Gomez is trying to do is to throw darts without properly addressing the claims that I have brought against him and his cohorts. Rather, he chooses to throw mud without standing up like a man and denying the charges that have been brought against him by Scamraiders and me. And that is establishing that he's a perjurer, that he's bribed and corrupted judges and referees. And when I say he, I mean he, Pavia, Siebert, and his partner Burke. That he's filed false charges against me wherever he could. Why don't you stand up and answer the charges, Mr. Gomez, and stop acting like the creep and liar that you are. Thank you so much. I hope these tapes and videos make some sense to you. I will have another one very shortly. Thanks again.